Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for May 9th, 2018. On today's show, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news and answer a couple quick reader emails. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Serrata, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film writers Hoai-Tran Bui.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Okay, let's get this started. Let's jump into the news. Let's start off with Arrested Development. They released the recut version of season 4 last week. Have either of you seen this yet?
I haven't. I wasn't a huge fan of season 4, so I didn't really bother to rewatch the remix version.
I have not either. I've been meaning to watch this, but I just haven't had a chance yet.
Yeah, a lot of the criticism of season 4 was that everybody, they couldn't get everybody together, to film, together. So the storylines were so fragmented. And it was also kind of presented out of order in a way. The creators of Arrested Development recut everything in, I think, chronological order and presented in this new recut version, which is causing a bit of controversy. HT, tell us about it.
Yeah, so Mitch Hurwitz, the creator of Arrested Development, essentially recut Arrested Development Season 4 into the traditional storylines that we see in the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development. The original Season 4 had it as each episode would focus on a particular member of the Bluth family in a sort of Rashomon-style storytelling. And this was met with some mixed appraisal when it first debuted a few years ago, and now it's been recut as more of just, like you said, chronological. And in the process, that has expanded the season length from the original 15-episode run to 22 episodes, because they've cut down the times from each episode, which would go on for about 30 minutes, and they're now down to 22 minutes, 23 minutes each. And because of that, and because Hurwitz also used some extra footage he hadn't initially used, they were able to stretch it to 22 episodes, which would enable them to be syndicated, essentially. And so this syndication pact is kind of the source of the new rift between Hurwitz and 20th Century Fox Television and the cast of Arrested Development. So essentially, with the syndication, the studio would be getting a lot more money in, as well as Hurwitz. And the actors such as Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, Michael Cera, and David Cross are apparently approaching them for additional compensation for these extra episodes, which was not part of their original deal when the season 4 was first filmed. And because 20th Century Fox Television is sort of balking at this request, saying that they have the right to re-edit this television and make whatever so much more money out of it, this has kind of caused a tension between the cast and the crew.
This is an interesting scenario, because I don't think this has probably ever happened in the history of television or movies, because they're releasing the same season in a new cut. I mean, I guess movies get recut all the time with director's cuts. I'm wondering how, that is dealt with, in terms of the cast getting paid. But let's move on to a bit of good news, and that is that Jordan Peele has announced his new horror movie, Us. This is his follow-up for the fantastic Get Out. Chris, you are super excited about this. What do we know?
Yes, some would say I'm too excited about this, but this news broke last night, and I was just over the moon about it, because I'm a huge fan of Get Out, and I'm a huge fan of just the horror genre in general, and I love the idea that Jordan Peele is sticking with that genre. So yeah, last night, Jordan Peele tweeted out a teaser poster for his film. The tagline says, "A new nightmare from the mind of the Academy Award winner Jordan Peele." It's called Us, and Lupita Nyong'o, Elisabeth Moss, and Winston Duke are all in talks to star in the film. Details are they're not really any details about what it's about. All we know is that it's about two couples, one white, one black, and that's pretty much all we know about it. In the past, Jordan Peele has said, he intends to stick with the horror genre. And that's really it. We know it's a horror movie. We know who's probably going to be in it. We know Jordan Peele is making it, and we know it'll be out in March 2019. And really, that's enough for me to get very excited. That's really all I need to know to get excited about this movie.
And it seems with these two couples, it seems like he's still sticking to, probably saying something larger than just a horror movie about the social political climate of today, I assume. And it's also interesting.
I remember in the aftermath of Get Out, he said he was planning to do a series of social horror movies, so it's probably along the same lines.
And it's cool that we could get to see a Black Panther reunion with this movie. I'm excited. HT, are you excited?
I am excited. I love this cast, Lupita Nyong'o. I've raved about her before. I'm just so happy that she's getting more work. And I think Winston Duke was a breakout of Black Panther as well. Elizabeth Moss is phenomenal in every episode of The Handmaid's Tale. So I can't wait for this cast. I'm really excited about this just concoction of stars and directors.
Yeah, and Moss was great in Mad Men, but I feel like people didn't take her seriously until Handmaid's Tale. But I'm glad that Hollywood is finally casting her into some great stuff, and I'm excited to see what this is. And I'm excited that a good filmmaker is getting the chance to do original films. And I know Jordan Peele had flirted with the idea of doing Akira at Warner Brothers, but it's interesting that he's taking this path of doing these smaller original films, which is going to be interesting to see. But let's move on to something that isn't small, and that is the Harley Quinn movie. Margot Robbie has been out doing some press, and she basically gave us some new details on what this film is. HT, what do we know?
Well, her new details are actually a little bit old because she revealed what her original pitch for the Harley Quinn solo movie will be, which in essence isn't really a solo movie because it's sort of a riff off of Birds of Prey, which director Kathy Yan is set to helm. So Margot Robbie gave an update on the film saying that I pitched the idea of an R-rated girl gang film, including Harley, because I was like, Harley needs friends. Harley loves interacting with people, so don't ever make her do a standalone film. She's got to be with other people. It should be a girl gang. I wasn't seeing enough girl gangs on screen, especially in the action space. So that was always a big part of it. So this will essentially be a big team-up movie with Harley leading the way, potentially, with the Birds of Prey, which usually includes Batman heroes or DC heroes such as Black Canary, Barbara Gordon's, aka Batgirl, and Huntress.
Okay, now I'm about to upset some DC fans here, but to me this sounds like DC is copying the path that Marvel took with Deadpool 2. Because Deadpool needed a team around him to be interesting. I agree that Harley Quinn probably needs a team around her to have people to interact with. And for quite some time, we've been tracking two different movies: the Harley Quinn movie and this Birds of Prey. Does this confirm that the Harley Quinn movie isn't happening? So
in the original report with Kathy Yan being tapped to helm the film, they talked about this being inspired by the Birds of Prey movie. So I feel like they combined the two as the Harley Quinn solo movie and the Birds of Prey movie. The Gotham City Sirens is another project altogether, as well as the Harley Quinn and Joker film as well. So this is something that's, I guess, a culmination of Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn, which is kind of interesting because Harley Quinn is usually a foe of the Birds of Prey and not actually a team member in the comics.
So basically DC has given up on the DCU and has gone on to the Harley Quinniverse.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. Let's talk about, there has been an article that basically revealed a lot of the salaries, the current salaries for Hollywood talent. We usually don't get into that kind of information, but I think a bunch of this is pretty interesting, including Robert Downey Jr. being paid $10 million for his 8 minutes of screen time in Spiderman Homecoming, which, by the way, part of it is just all CG, so he wasn't even on set for most of that because it was, an Iron Man costume and he was doing ADR voice. But Chris, you wrote this up. What are some of the other interesting findings from this report?
Yeah, well, the most interesting finding is I'm a poor person and I will never see any money like this in my life. But like writing this kind of depressed me a little. But that said, some of the most surprising things were Dwayne Johnson is getting a boatload of money for that film called Red Notice, which hasn't really even started filming yet. It's an art heist movie, and that movie itself set off this huge bidding war. But Dwayne Johnson alone is getting $22 million for that movie. And one of the most interesting things about that story I found was he's getting $1 million alone just to promote the film on his social media feeds, which is something I hadn't even really considered with, popular actors who have a social media presence. Apparently, actors who have that big social following are writing that into their contracts now, where, if you want me to promote your movie on Twitter, you got to pay me. So,
and The Rock has 13 million followers on Twitter. Who knows how many on Facebook and other platforms. I mean, that is a sizable audience, but you think, like, when you cast a big star, you think that they would be wanting to promote the film for free on their all the platforms that they have available to them.
Right, that's what I was thinking, but maybe that explains why I am poor. Because if I thought like this, I'd be raking it in. But yeah, so
tomorrow I'm going to get an email from Chris being like, "I want extra money to promote the Slash Film Stories on Twitter. The Rock is doing it."
Chris, your next career is going to be as an influencer.
I hope so. Some other things where Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard both got a raise for coming back for Jurassic Park: Fallen Kingdom, but Chris Pratt ultimately is getting $2 million more than Bryce Dallas Howard. Now, I know people will argue he's clearly the bigger star, he's doing Marvel movies, but it did bother me just a little bit, not to get all, virtue signaling here, but it did bother me a little bit that Bryce Dallas Howard isn't getting the same amount of money as him, because, when you look at the trailers and the posters and all that stuff for the movie, she's featured just as much as he is, pretty much equally. So it would have been nice if that had happened, but again, I'm sure someone will argue he's the bigger star. Beyond that,
do we know how much they got on the first film?
I don't have that.
You don't have that information?
Right.
Because the first film was made right after Guardians of the Galaxy was being, filmed. So Chris Pratt wasn't even a huge star when that was made. So it's interesting to see this discrepancy. HT, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not quite happy with it either. I feel like the screen time they get is also in equal amounts as well. And I think their characters, in my opinion, bear equal weight, especially I think in the sequel, from what I've seen of the trailers anyway. So it's not a great look.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely getting a lot of write-up around the interweb, so I'm sure Universal is going to have to deal with it in some way. Chris, is there any other interesting salary info?
The last most interesting thing is, this is a good thing. Patty Jenkins got a huge payday. She's getting $9 million for Wonder Woman 2, which is apparently 3 times more than she made for directing the first Wonder Woman. I remember it took a long time for them to finally announce Patty Jenkins was coming back for Wonder Woman 2, and it seems like that's because she was working hard to get that big payday, and I'm very happy about that because she deserves it, since that's the only good DC film to this date. So she's earned it.
Yeah, and that also makes her the highest paid female director of all time, which is pretty impressive, or maybe not impressive, looking at that figure and probably comparing it to some of the male directors that have been making films throughout Hollywood for years. But we're making progress, right?
Maybe.
No,
not. I mean, it's it's good. She like you said, like that's a big payday, but I feel like it could be bigger. But yeah, we'll see. Baby steps, I guess.
I mean, considering Robert Downey Jr. got paid that amount of money for Spider-Man: Homecoming, and probably was on set for only a few days. I'm not saying the acting isn't a hard job. I've been on many movie sets, and it is pretty tough. But directing a film for, there's 2-3 year investment in that. It's pretty insane that she, is making less than that. Let's move on to The Man Who Killed Don Quixote and Terry Gilliam. This project has been plagued from the start. And we have a little bit more bad news. HT, tell us about it.
The 20-year curse on The Man Who Killed Don Quixote continues. But the new batch of troubles actually comes with some good news for a change. So I'm going to start with the good news, because I think that this movie needs some good news every now and then. And that is that The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, a film that Terry Gilliam has been working on since 1998 and has tried to film before it got shut down, before it got revived, and then shut down and revived again, and is now heading over to the Cannes Film Festival. It was met with several legal troubles recently after a former producer took Terry Gilliam to court over the rights to the film, claiming that he still had the rights to the film. But in a court case at the Paris District Court, they ruled that Terry Gilliam has the rights to the film and that the film can premiere at the Cannes Film Festival as it was initially planned. So, hooray! This movie is finally coming to and being revealed to the world.
Hey, I don't believe of its existence until I see it.
Well, on May 19th, we have 10 more days for things to go wrong. But for now, it's heading to the world premiere on May 19th at the Cannes Film Festival.
And speaking of things going wrong...
But while it can make its world premiere, its U.S. distribution is in jeopardy, because Amazon Studios, which initially signed on to distribute the film stateside, in 2015, has dropped The Man Who Killed Don Quixote from distribution. So essentially is now left without a distributor for the U.S. And that one is sort of, we don't really know anything else from there. It's just kind of left to its world premiere and maybe not coming to the States. We'll see. At the Cannes Film Festival, there are other distributors coming, and they may pick up the film after it makes its premiere.
And Gilliam, how is he doing? Because he just suffered a stroke.
Yeah. More bad news, essentially, is that Terry Gilliam this past weekend suffered a minor stroke and was hospitalized. This was actually in the midst of this legal battle with the producer Paul Branco. But apparently he's home and he's recovering, and will be hopefully better in time for the movie's premiere.
I hope he's okay. He's a good filmmaker. I would hate to see. I would hate to see this destroy him. This is it's just a movie. We don't need to see a documentary in a few years called "The Film That Killed Terry Gilliam," because that would be horrible. I'm sorry, that's a bad joke.
There was already a documentary about this, the first production of this. So
yeah, have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it. I was just amazed that it existed.
Oh my god, it's so good. Chris, you must have seen that original. What is it, Man from La Mancha?
Yeah, I have seen that, which feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, and it's great to see that the film is finally on the cusp of actually happening after all that time. But if you are into film documentaries, I would highly suggest you seek that out. I'm not sure where it's available these days. I know it was available on DVD, but a film like that might have been lost on digital, rental and stuff. You'll have to go searching for it. Okay, let's talk about a bunch of adaptations coming to TV and cinemas. Let's start off first with Friday Night Lights, which started as a book, turned into a big screen movie by Peter Berg, starring Billy Bob Thornton, and then became a TV series on NBC, starring Kyle Chandler. A beloved TV series. A TV series I love, and I don't even love sports. Now word is that David Gordon Green, the director of Pineapple Express, is in talks to direct a new big screen version of Friday Night Lights, which I guess is going to be a completely new story, not related to the original movie or TV series. I know you guys have not yet seen Friday Night Lights, the TV show. I'm a huge fan of the show, what Jason Kapnis did with the series, and it almost pains me to see This Is Us, that current show, doing so well because it's such a bad version of what Friday Night Lights and Parenthood did before it. But I know, are you guys, we were kind of shaming you in the Slash Film Slack for not having seen Friday Night Lights. Are you guys going to give it a chance?
I'll put it on the list. No,
How big is this list, HT? How big is the list?
It's I don't even know at this point.
What you're saying is you don't even have a list.
It's in my head. I have been planning to watch the series for a long time just because I've had so many friends who have been telling me how much I will love it. And because I kind of do reference the show a lot despite never having seen it. The clear eyes, full hearts can't lose line is very it's saturated in pop culture. But I need to watch it. I know it's a common occurrence that I'm being shamed on this podcast and on the Slack. But, I have been meaning to watch it, so you don't need to shame me. I will see it at some point.
I think you would personally, knowing your taste in movies and TV shows, I think you would fall in love with the show and fall in love with the characters in the show. I am kind of shocked that Chris has not given this a chance since he watches nearly every piece of content released on streaming. Chris, defend yourself.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it. I think I just sort of had like a mental block. Like on one level, the fact that it was a movie first and then a TV show, I guess maybe it's like OCD makes me feel like, I can't watch the movie I can't watch the show until I see the movie. I don't really feel like watching the movie. And then on the other hand, I'm not really into sports at all or football at all. And that sort of has kept me from watching it. But based on, what everyone has said, I do intend to finally get around to watching it. Someday soon.
Someday soon. Well, I don't know what the point of making a new movie out of this franchise is. I mean, I guess, you just need a brand name on a football movie category, but we'll have to see. Give it a chance. David Gordon Green has done some good stuff. Let's move on to movies turning into TV shows. And YouTube has announced that they are making a TV series based on the film The Edge of 17. HT, what do we know here?
So YouTube Red will be developing an Edge of 17 TV spinoff. And this is based off of the acclaimed and really good movie starring Haley Steinfeld as a high school outcast whose best friend starts dating her popular older brother and causes her to spiral into a pit of sort of self-destruction and depression. It's a really great film and it earned some Golden Globe nods for both Steinfeld and for the film. But it will be a completely different TV spinoff as far as I can tell. It will feature an entirely new cast and will follow, based on THR, a high school student and her best friend as they navigate the relationships, feelings, and realities of being a teenage girl. And then YouTube also says that the series will, quote, subvert standard teen show tropes, unquote. So it seems like it's kind of using the brand name of Edge of 17 as the sort of premise / launching pad for a character-driven teen series on YouTube Red.
What do you think of this? I know you're a big fan of the movie, but does it need to be a TV series?
I mean, I was skeptical because I love the movie so much, and I think it works so well as a 2-hour film. It's a really brutally honest movie that deals with depression and social anxiety really well. And it also has an Asian American romantic lead, which is really exciting for me, even though the actor was actually like 30 years old, which I found hilarious, but he was really cute. So I was skeptical about this TV series just because the premise feels so unique and so fitting for a movie, and so general, I guess, that it feels like this premise, this TV series spinoff could just be an original TV series. And not something that's connected to Edge of 17.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to play devil's advocate, I feel like the best movies that have turned into TV series thus far have been kind of based on character and tone rather than like a big high concept idea. Like I feel like Fargo is so awesome, and to me that's all about tone and character, and expanding on what the Coen brothers were trying to do. But yeah, I'm a little skeptical as well. Although I did just get done binging the Karate Kid sequel series Cobra Kai, which is a YouTube Red series, and I'm actually thinking about watching it a second time.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I kind of loved it. So I don't know, YouTube. Who would have thought? I mean, I guess like, a few years ago, before, when Netflix is still a DVD service and they were announcing they were going to do original programming on their, streaming service, I was like, that's never going to work. and I kind of feel the same way with YouTube, but, they have my eyes. So I'm curious to see, more from them, see what else they can do other than Cobra Kai and, the lower budget, YouTube star kind of stuff that they've done previously with, YouTube Red. I want to see some more serious, TV series from YouTube. But let's get into a couple, emails in the mailbag. These emails have to do with Avengers Infinity War. So if you still have not seen that movie, I don't know what you're doing listening to this podcast, but you might want to turn off now because spoilers for those films. The other day we talked about how Spider-Man Homecoming sequel comes out only 2 months after Avengers 4, and how that will pose an interesting problem for Sony's marketing team. We got a bunch of emails writing in about that. Austin Price from Baltimore, Maryland, wrote in that the question I have is advertising even that important anymore? He basically says if Infinity War or Spider-Man movie is coming out in 2 months, he's already there. It doesn't matter about the advertising. He doesn't need to see the trailers, the TV spots. So he wanted to get our thoughts on is the marketing even important to get people in those seats? HT, what are your thoughts?
That's a good question, because I feel like the traditional TV marketing and movie trailers, in the sense that, that's the first way that people hear about them, they don't have that much power anymore. But still, we make our living basically off of writing up these TV spots and TV trailers, and people still look at them and click on them and overanalyze each one of them. So I wonder, I feel like it's maybe the difference between people who are the hardcore fans versus people who are just like the casual fans of this, or casual audience goers. I don't know if I can speak for people who are casual moviegoers who are just like, hear of a movie somehow through the grapevine and be like, oh, okay, I will think of that. Because I think that there is a larger interplay of both movie trailers and ads and maybe Rotten Tomatoes or people telling them in person. So That's a good question that I don't really know the answer to. I think it depends on how you personally approach movies and the movies that you want to see.
Yeah, I do think that you're onto something. I think we are in a bubble. We're in this film Twitter bubble where people are either very interested in analyzing and finding out more and seeing the latest footage, or people, are excited about the latest thing but don't want to see a trailer. But I think the general public does, when I step outside my bubble and I'm in an Uber and I'm talking to an Uber driver, which is probably a bad example, but when I'm talking to gen public, it seems very clear to me that they are very not connected to what's going on, or have as much knowledge as we assume they even have about what's going on in cinema. I do know from, my experience in this industry that TV spots and trailers, but mostly TV spots, have a large amount to do with how many people show up in theaters. Studios have tested TV spots in some markets and not put them in other markets, and they find that the more money they put in TV spots, it equates to the awareness level, and if that awareness is of the property is good, more people end up showing up in cinemas. It actually is kind of like one of those things where it takes money to make money. So I think that's the case, and I think also you got to consider that Disney is not distributing this movie; it's Sony, and Sony I don't think is going to be willing to wait until 2 months before the movie to start giving away what the movie is about, which is kind of I guess a spoiler for Avengers 4, right? So we have another question here from Paul I. He wonders, could They leave the disappearance to Spider-Man and the chaos that was left behind as the teaser trailer. Tony Stark handing the Spider-Man suit from Infinity War to someone else or something like that, and tease it up before Infinity War or until Avengers 4 comes to theaters, and then actually start the real marketing campaign that I guess will reveal that Tom Holland is back as Spider-Man. Chris, is that an insane idea?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I can't. I honestly can't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think I could see that happening either. But I'm wondering if there is a way to market the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel before the release of Avengers 4 without kind of showing Tom Holland. But I guess it's probably not possible because you have to. I mean, there's going to be a teaser poster out at that point, and it's going to have Tom Holland's name on it. So I just don't think that's possible. I think the marketing for Spider-Man Homecoming 2 or whatever they end up calling it will have to spoil it in some way, unless they end up pushing the release date back, which is also very possible. But that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. Chris, where can people find more of your work online?
I'm at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at cevangelista413.
HT, where can we find you?
I'm also at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at htranbui.
You can find this podcast published every weekday on slashfilm.com, on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to Peter at slashfilm.com, and please mention your name and general geographic location in case we mention them on the air. Please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.